Thank you. And a very warm welcome to everybody. And I say warm specifically because I'm in Southern Africa, and at the moment we're having temperatures going up to about 30 degrees, which is absolutely delightful coming from the European winter. So because there are several people here who are not accustomed or not members of the Pass It On network, please just indulge me while I just tell you a little bit about us. First of all, the Pass It On network was founded in 2013 by Jan Hively, who's here with us. Jan, a huge, huge welcome, and by myself. And our whole idea and our objective with the Pass It On network is to be positive aging advocates for the rights of older people throughout the world, and also to advocate for the adjustment of society to the challenges of the aging population, because as we all know, the world is an aging globe, and that's what we're all about. So the Pass It On network is very proud of the fact that we have positive aging advocates in 65 different countries around the world. We have some local networks, one of which, the strongest of which, is in Southern Africa, where there are 10 countries involved, and we're all hoping to be very present at the IFA's 17th conference in South Africa, which is taking place in Cape Town. So how do we operate? We are a network. We don't ask membership fees. We stick together as people, and we build progressively and as we go along. We have our 50-50 webinars like tonight. They're all recorded and they're on a YouTube channel. And these give us the opportunity of finding out what people around the world think about the different challenges of aging. And this is one of the most important things, and why we call our webinars 50-50, because we like to present for about 50 minutes, and we definitely like to 50% of the time, and we definitely like to have the reactions of people and the exchanges across borders. And as you can see from the number of people present tonight, it's so exciting to see people from India, from Vienna, from Holland, from South Africa, from all over the place, exchanging ideas of this major world phenomenon that is the aging phenomenon. So without further ado, except to say to you, if you're not already a member and you're not receiving our regular publications or communications, simply go to our network and sign in on the website, which is simply www.passitonnetwork, all in one word, .org. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Osnat, who's going to guide us through this webinar tonight. Osnat, over to you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. 35 people around this campfire. We are going to travel to India today to look at India's vision on aging, blending innovation and tradition. And this is kind of interesting, because we usually kind of try to look at specific topics, but now we're looking more, drilling deeper into a topic within a country. And the person who's going to guide us through this today just stepped off the plane on Saturday, rushed over to create this engaging presentation that she's going to share with us. We're welcoming back Femada Shamam, who is the CEO of the Association for the Aged in Durban, South Africa. It's a non-profit organization that supports more than 5,000 older persons. She has a background in social work and management, and working with older persons sector as a practitioner and service provider for the last 24 years. And Femada is passionate about purpose-driven work and seeks to activate change toward an enabling society for people to grow older with dignity, respect, and meaning. And that also is reflected in her recent role as a vice chair of CommonAge, and her trip to India to see what is actually happening in other places. and I think Australia too, right, Femada? So without further ado, welcome Femada to our session here.
Okay, thank you so much, Osnet, and greetings to everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's an absolute pleasure to share with you my experience of going to India. And let me quickly try and get the slideshow going. And you know, these things work when we try it out. So I'm just hoping that the technology gods are smiling on me right now. There you go. Does that work?
Yes, they are.
Excellent. Okay. So before I go into the presentation, maybe let me just share with you a story about my trip to India. So on the 16th of November, we commemorated the 164th anniversary of indentured laborers coming to South Africa. So 164 years ago, the first ships arrived in Durban carrying people from India to work on the sugarcane plantations. And that started the entire community of people of Indian origin in Durban, South Africa. So it was quite a surreal experience knowing that this was my first trip back to India. So it was a trip just connecting me to my heritage. And so it was deeply meaningful. And just to say, so I traveled from South Africa to Dubai and from Dubai to Bangalore. And while in Dubai, at the airport, I quickly sent a message to my cousins. So we've got a cousins group, about 50 of us. I send a message to my cousins to say, I'm on my way to India. I just want to confirm which part of India are we from? And interestingly enough, I started getting all these messages. So apparently my maternal side is from Kerala, where I was going, and my paternal side was from Gujarat, which is the north part of India. So here I was sitting in Dubai thinking, oh, this is very interesting. I only asked this question now. I should have asked it a long time ago. But interestingly enough, I got a number of somebody from India, from Gujarat. And so I WhatsApped it boldly. And I'm like, okay, I'm from South Africa and I've got your number from this person. And his immediate response was, please come and meet your family in India. Slight problem. I was on the other end of the country, but be that as it may, I think it was a good way to start the trip, the openness and the warmth of the people from India. And perhaps that's the story of this, or that's the theme of this presentation. I must say, as I arrived in Bangalore and I stepped off the plane, I had to take in a deeper breath because it was such a surreal experience knowing that I was going back to my roots, which was quite powerful. So be that as it may, it was quite an interesting trip. So thank you so much for the introduction. I went to India on an India mission as part of CommonAge, so the Commonwealth Association for the Aging. I serve as the vice chair of CommonAge. I head up the Africa chapter, and I also head up the South African chapter of CommonAge. And basically, the missions that we have into the different countries is to understand the aging journey in that particular country and also to look at points of collaboration and partnership and how we can support different people with regards to their initiatives. So let me just make sure that this presentation is going to work. So the mission to India was 9 days, 2 conferences, 2 launches, 4 visits to different facilities. We went to 2 cities, 6 different accommodation places, 2 formal dinners, 2 cocktail events, and 1 birthday celebration, and loads of learning, laughter, and sharing. So just imagine this. Here I am traveling through India with only 15 kgs of luggage. Do you know how difficult that is for me as a person who packs for just in case? So being in a country for 9 days and having all of these different things happening was quite challenging. So sleep was a minor inconvenience because people in Bangalore don't sleep. So we just had to move because the pace at which things were happening was an indication of what was to come with regards to the aging climate within India. So, a bird's eye view of India and Africa. So I did this comparison for a presentation I was doing. I was talking about a Pan-African perspective on aging and a Pan-African perspective on dementia in particular. So India as a country has a population of 1.45 billion. So as one country, they have a population of 1.45 billion. The entire population of Africa is 1.5 billion. So we have a continent that equates to a country. And I think what I was most interested in was the number of older people. So in Africa, the number of older people is estimated to be 80 million. The number of older people in India is 160 million. So lots and lots of older people. That also has huge implications in terms of dementia work as well. In Africa, it's estimated the number of people living with dementia is 2.1 million. Whereas in India, the number of people living with dementia is 7.6 million, and that's estimated to go up to 21 million by the year 2050. So these numbers are just mind-boggling, trying to understand how much of work needs to be done in a country like India. And so, you know, as I was listening to some of the numbers and I was putting together the presentation, you can't help but feel a little bit overwhelmed, and you think, oh, you know, how can my little initiative assist when the need is so great? But I must say, I left India so inspired because there was so much of things happening. So the word I would use to describe the trip to India is overdrive, and I use this for a particular reason. My mentor is, well, her name was Mary Leppens, and she passed on, and her birthday would have been on the 5th of December. So I was kind of thinking about her, and she taught me something very important. Whenever I am speaking about something, start with defining it. What do you mean? And so I'm going to start off with overdrive, meaning a state of great or excessive activity. And that is exactly how I would describe India, a state of great and excessive activity as it relates to people. So they are in overdrive in terms of the people. When you're looking at the numbers of older people, certainly there's huge numbers they're talking about. They are in overdrive when you're looking at the approaches to care, from dementia care to looking at the launch of the age-friendly city. There's just so much of positivity and so much of hope. And that's one of the things that I found really inspiring about being at the DEMCON conference, as well as being at the launch of the age-friendly city. The attitude of the people is in overdrive as well. It's this can-do attitude. I was traveling with two colleagues of mine from CommonAge, and the way we described was a heightened sense of confidence. India has a heightened sense of confidence in their ability to address the issues around aging. The technology certainly is in overdrive as well. As I was going from conference to conference and going to the different cities, you just got a sense of technology being available to assist on different levels, from wearable devices to looking at comfort living to RIA, the humanoid. So India's developed this humanoid called RIA. So it was quite interesting. I also use the word overdrive for the food, the culture, and the traffic. I had to put in the traffic because, oh my word, don't you need nerves of steel to be able to negotiate through India's traffic? It was just, it was phenomenal. Yeah, and I'm so glad that we had someone driving us around, because I think I would just have been paralyzed trying to get through the traffic. So that's amazing. And talk about healthy aging. I think if you can drive through the traffic in India, it's so good for your heart because it keeps it pumping at a higher level continuously. So that was quite interesting. So let's look at, so some of these slides are based on things that I picked up at the conference. So none of it is originally mine. So I must put in that disclaimer because I'm literally off the plane. I was trying to make sure that I can share the information with you. The elder care scenario in India, there's limited elder care facilities, and there's a focus on family care in terms of the culture of care. There's huge demographic changes, and there's changes in the family structure. Migration is impacting on the Indian community in such a huge way, because you find lots of people are immigrating to work in the care sectors in places like Australia, in the UK. So what's happened is that you have these villages, these ghost villages, because the young people have moved, and the older people are now starting to move into care facilities, which is quite interesting in terms of the shifting structures in the community. There's a changing values and a desire for older people to live independently as well, which is something that we need to, that came up as a constant theme, both at the DEMCON conference as well as at the ASLI conference. It's a largely unregulated sector, so there's also limited holistically trained home care workforce, and there's the high caregiver burden, burnout, mental health issues. Those are things that they find quite a lot of as well. Okay, so the DEMCON conference. So this was the dementia conference, and some of the key messages around that. Maybe the most profound is something that Graham Pryor said. He is the president of IFA, so Cynthia would know Graham. He said, no one will escape dementia. And as he spoke, we could understand where he was coming from. If you're not living with dementia, you're going to be a caregiver of dementia. And so we have to understand that this is our reality. There were almost 1,000 delegates that attended this conference, and that was quite impressive for an organization that was only 18 months old. They managed to bring together 140 speakers that were sharing knowledge, exchanging ideas, and collaborating. The kind of phrase that stuck in my head was the coalition of the willing. One of the speakers spoke about this and said that in the room, we are forming this coalition of people willing to be part of the change and willing to make a difference. So there was the shared energy and commitment of everyone present. That was very inspiring, that irrespective of the diversity, irrespective of the challenges, there was a willingness of people to want to share with each other. And some of the ideas that resonated with me, the idea around the memory clinics and the research, especially with regards to the biomarkers for early diagnosis. One of the researchers had put together his presentation, and one of the things that struck with me was that 45% of cases of dementia are potentially preventable. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done around prevention. I was also quite impressed with the non-pharmacological approaches, looking at traditional medicine, traditional practices as preventative strategies. The issues around technology in care, and technology was everything from your wearable devices to technology for early diagnosis, and as well as technology for treatment. The issue around building capacity in terms of the workforce, and there was quite a lot of discussion around the 14 risk factors for dementia. And I think for anybody who's wanting to work in this field or interested in the field, I would really encourage you to go and look up some of these risk factors for dementia as well. And so we had quite a multinational group of people, and there was one particular lady from Panama, which was really quite fascinating. She brought her flags. I had to put this picture, quite an interesting character. And I think that's what the conference does as well. It brings together a whole lot of different perspectives, and the diversity really is our superpower. So this, was some of the presentations around technology and all of the wearable things that are now available in terms of the technology aspect. There was also quite a lot of discussion around generative AI and how that can revolutionize dementia care. I'll make these slides available so, Osnet can share it. But I've put this up there just to give an indication of how much can be done around generative AI and how that can help in terms of our diagnosis, but also in terms of how we respond to people living with dementia. Oops, sorry. I found the conversation around the biomarker molecules fascinating. So the streams, as they had put the conference together, was relevant for people, whether they were researchers that are doing cutting edge research around dementia, whether it was practitioners, whether it was older people themselves, people that were involved in the arts and craft. So I was really impressed with the diversity of speakers that were available. But the issue around the biomarker molecules was something that was spoken about at length as well. And I really would encourage people to go and look a little bit more around this research, because it helps in terms of preventable things that can be done in terms of dementia work. And then these are two fun videos that I put in here, and I hope you're going to hear the sound. So, so some of the students, I think you can hear us. Yeah, some of the students were running sort of preventative programs in the exhibition space. So I think here I was especially impressed with the simplicity of the activities. You don't have to have high-tech stuff. You can use simple activities to inspire the creative juices in the brain. And this was one of the most fun sessions. It was around music therapy and how it resonates with people living with dementia, and how it connects you to each other. And I'm sure each of you are going to recognize the song that they're singing.
You are up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
So
I wish we had more time to build on this more.
So I deliberately put this in there because it was one of the most fun sessions that we were at. And what I found most fascinating was that there was a mix of older people, a mix of younger people, a mix of academics, practitioners and professors, all sitting in the same room singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, because it all resonated with us. And it was about the connection points and how we can relate to each other. So the dementia conference was really a focal point in terms of bringing together different role plays and trying to reach out to each other. The theme of the conference was reaching the unreached, and it was really a space to connect. Osnet, you'll just tell me about time so that I can go quickly.
You go ahead.
Okay. All right. So part of what we did was also visit a couple of homes. This was a home that is operated by Travanco Foundation. And one of the reasons why I absolutely love this home, aside from the fact that there's just so much of green around, was the design of this building. It's a triangular building, and all of it is inward looking, and you look into this courtyard where all the activity happens. So in different spaces, they would have activities, whether it's yoga or whether it's just gardening. But it's just such a beautifully designed building. And I thought, what a serene place to live. And it so happened while we were there, it started to rain, and just listening to the pitter-patter of the rain while watching all of the beauty around us was quite surreal. So I really loved the design of this building. And then this was another building that we visited. It was called Bless Homes, Bless Retirement Living. Fancy, state of the art, all of the frills and thrills that you can think about is included in this. And why this was significant for me is because there's a growing market for senior living in terms of your higher income groups. And we're starting to see, we kind of got the sense while we were there that more and more people from affluent homes were willing to look at the options of senior living communities. So there's going to be quite a lot of competition for that. And then we jetted off to Kochi for the launch of the Age-Friendly City. And this is the mayor of Kochi wearing his traditional outfit. It's called a mundu, not a dhoti. So the person from India who's on here will tell me if I'm getting the pronunciation wrong. But he was one of the most impressive politicians I had met. When we got there, we got a message that we're meeting with the mayor. So I'm thinking, oh gosh, okay, we're meeting with the mayor. Time to bring out the formal outfits. But he was meeting with us at a social housing project that they had in the city. And that's the first picture where you can see the fan. Basically, he converted an abandoned building into affordable accommodation for people coming into the city, especially if they were looking for work and they needed a place to stay. Also for people who needed accommodation, this was affordable. Attached to this was a food scheme where they were feeding 3,000 people on a daily basis and provided employment for over 90 women. Hugely impressive. And that was the dinner that we had that night. So it was not dinner at a fancy restaurant. It was dinner at the social housing project. And we ate off a banana leaf, which was the most fascinating experience. But the humility of this gentleman, I think, was one of the things that resonated with me. It was about when we said to him, so this is the legacy that you leave for the city. And he said, no, it's not my legacy. It's the legacy of the city for its people. And I thought, wow, for a politician not to want to take all the credit was really wonderful. But he seemed to have the heart in terms of this kind of work, and that was truly quite impressive. I think Kochi itself was such a beautiful place to be in, beautifully green, and the literacy rate in Kerala, I think, is almost 100%, 99.4% or 99.6% literacy. So really out there in terms of literacy, but also the airport, the Kerala, the airport as we came into Kochi is, I think, the first solar-powered airport in India, if not the world. And that was quite impressive. To have this entire airport powered by solar panels was something else altogether. So that just gives an indication of the progressiveness of the city. And that is why I think it was so telling that they were launching as the first ever age-friendly city in India. So at this event where they had over 650 people present, they launched the age-friendly city, and these were some of the programs and projects that lent itself to this age-friendly city. I've put in some of the sort of what's the word, translations of the programs. So the first was the Age-Friendly Kochi Resource Center, and they produced an entire report around all of these things and how it lent itself to Kochi being admitted onto the World Health Organization's register as an age-friendly city. The second one, I can't even pronounce it. Okay, I'm going to try. It's Biosmi. No, I'm doing it really wrong, but it is about oral health. So the second program is about oral health and prevention programs. The third program was about a mobile AI platform for NCD screenings. Then they looked at geriatric tourism, looking at basically tourism for older persons. They looked at experiential outings, home visits, and counseling. The sixth one was around the respect age, was around combating elder abuse. The seventh one was about bridging the technology gap and bringing in the whole intergenerational aspect. They also looked at the SEDAC, which was training and support, capacity building, a school for seniors. The 10th one is around the memory cafes, which is something that's taking up huge significance, I think, throughout the world as well. Then there was the very interesting one around Geri art. And this was developed by the film school as well as the Media Trust to promote the active involvement of older people in the arts, drama, cinema, and other creative fields. And we saw a lot of that in the launch program where the older people were performing at the launch event, and it was so heartwarming to see that level of engagement. In addition, there is the Karela Community Care Network, and finally, it's the Intergenerational Center. So all of these programs and projects has lent itself to Kochi being now admitted as the age-friendly city in India. Really inspirational stuff. And I think the thing that really resonates with me was it's not a particular program, nor is it one particular role player. It was a collaborative effort by a number of people under the leadership of the political leaders. And the importance of political will is something that I take out of this as well. So there needs to be collaboration amongst different people, but it also needs to be supported through the political structures. So a really wonderful achievement for Kochi. And these are just some pictures from the event itself. So that's the hall with all the elders. You can see in their beautiful saris and traditional dress. You know, tea is such a big thing. So we had tea being served to us. We felt like quite a group of celebrities, but it was quite a humbling experience to be there. And then we visited a school, and it was the launch of the certificate program in interprofessional practices in gerontology. And here again, the importance of education and building capacity was highlighted. So this particular school launched their certificate program. There's a whole lot of other initiatives in India with regards to training and capacity building, and we were really quite humbled to be part of this launch event. Our chair emeritus was the keynote speaker, and I did a presentation on social work, with my background being social work, just to, you know, to speak to some of the students about the career paths and how that particular profession does set you up for success if you choose to take it in that manner. And then we jetted back to Bangalore for the ASLI conference, and it's the Association for Senior Living. And basically, the ASLI organization was supporting older people through senior living, and they were focusing a lot around the real estate market. There are definitely some challenges with regards to the regulatory frameworks, societal perceptions around senior living communities, some infrastructure development issues. And some of the roundtable discussions focused on financial products, wrong spelling, sorry about that, on financial products, on age tech, etc. And I really, really found it fascinating to hear them talk about insurance products available for older people, especially as people are living longer, and as the demographic dividend takes hold of the community, they need to start thinking about insurance differently. And there was a lot of robust discussion around how do they fund care and support into the future. The conversation around age tech, oh my gosh, just completely blew my mind. You know, there was all these young people who were in their fancy suits and tackies, wanting to change the world, and really so passionate about the space. And one of the things that I reminded people that while we look to technology for solutions, we must never forget that our area is, the whole aspect around care and support is about people. It's a human profession. So the solutions that they come up with must be focused around older people. It can't be the other way around, where they find a solution and then try and sell that solution to people. Part of what I was sharing about our experience in South Africa is that we engaged with young people to find solutions based on the experiences of older people in terms of their everyday life. And I said to them, you know, I would love to be able to see that part of the design team would be older people themselves, so that they can talk about their experiences. So having that kind of focus was really important, or else your technology will not take off. And some key takeouts that from the ASLI conference. This particular one I found very interesting, where Adarsh Narahari, who's a part of the ASLI board, said that we are taught to give our parents reverence and not relevance. And basically, he was saying we are expected to revere our parents, and we don't really understand the aspect around relevance, especially relevance as it relates to independence, autonomy. So we want to revere them, we want to take care of them, but in doing so, we also limit their agency. And so that was quite a profound statement that he made. The other was around standardized processes, but for personalized care. So really bringing it back to all of this is to ensure that people feel that the care that they receive is responding to their needs. There was also some debate around the word care and well-being and whether care was limiting. And really what people wanted was the concept of well-being. So, that was quite a robust discussion. The gentleman at the end was, you can see he's the banker in the financial sector. And he was talking about socially relevant and economically efficient business that's very attractive to investors. So they were saying when we're looking at age tech and when we want to look at investing in age tech, it must be socially relevant, as well as issues around efficiencies as well. And the big elephant in the room was, do we have the human capital for the sector? And so there was quite a lot of robust discussion around that as well. What does it mean? What does migration mean where people are leaving India? And so there was a lot of consideration for people going overseas to earn, to learn, and then to return back to India. There was one particular moving story of someone who had been to the UK, worked in the UK in the care sector for 12 years, earned some money, brought that back and started up a dementia home in his home city. So this idea about earn, learn, and return was something that was being proposed as well. And this particular gentleman, Nathan Kamath, he joined us via Zoom. And basically his proposal was that we need to view funding of senior care ventures as a long-term investment. So he was encouraging investors to take a long-term view, 5 years, 10 years, as opposed to the traditional shorter startup cycles. Okay, and so I wanted to end with these beautiful images. We ended the ASLI conference with a fashion show, and these were some of the older people that participated in the fashion show, and my word, were they grand, with their outfits and the manner in which they walked the ramp. It was really so heartwarming to see these older people so beautifully curated in terms of this fashion show. And that's my presentation. Thank you, everyone. I am happy to take some questions.
First of all, we need to say thank you very much, Femada, for this incredible overview on your trip. And how long was that trip altogether?
9 days. 9 days.
I thought it was like maybe 3 months. It was so packed. We are now, let's see, we are now half an hour from our official. I think we could still have 10 minutes together in breakout rooms just to kind of roll things off our tongue. And before today, Femada said, let's look at these 3 focus areas: dementia, the age-friendly city, and age tech, and ask people what resonates with them. I took so many notes, and I think so much more is resonating. So I'm going to, as you think about how you'd like to use your 2 minutes with your group for those 10 minutes that we're going to breakout room, I'm going to set up breakout room, and we'll go there for 10 minutes and come back and just share. And yeah, I wanted to point a couple of things here. There were 2 questions in the chat that were kind of interesting, so I'll just pose them there, and then we'll go to the first person who raised their hand. And Femada, just feel free to take a couple minutes to answer questions or provide additional insights. One question in the chat was, how adaptive are these things that you saw there in India to other countries and cultures? And the other thing, at the beginning of your talk, you pointed out that there's in rural countries and villages, there's a great shortage of caregivers because they are leaving the country to earn, learn, and maybe return. And some of the things that, the wonderful things that you showed, actually happening in urban areas. And how is the country as a whole, this is kind of a generic question, adapting to a equal distribution of resources, if that is at all possible, or taking care of the areas that are less fortunate to have these advancements. And I think I saw, so I'm leaving it there hanging in the air. I think I saw Jackie. Was it you, or was it Cynthia who raised her hand?
Cynthia asked a question in the chat box, but in our breakout session, we said for Pass It On Network, it would be really important to get a list ahead of time of really relevant conferences taking place around the world, which are virtual and which are you have to attend, so that those people who are really not have the insiders information, that we could really learn more about what's going on in terms of conferences. That's all I wanted to ask, if Pass It On Network can do that.
I think if you look at our Gazette, often we list there, I say we, it's the royal we because my royal does all the work, list there many of the conferences that are actually taking place around the world. And I encourage you to do what I did, is I just got on the mailing list of everybody. Every time there's a conference somewhere, I get myself on the mailing list and I get all those, all that information as they happen. It's overwhelming because we all worry about the aging population in the world. And Han.
That was a fantastic presentation. And I have one question. I understand that in India, there are 3 times more people with dementia as in Africa. Why is that?
I don't know why. I assume that the lifespan has something to do with it. Remember that Africa was quite impacted in terms of the pandemic, in terms of HIV/AIDS. We're only now starting to see that our life expectancy is increasing quite substantially, whereas previously our life expectancy was quite low. And I'm making the assumption that as people live longer, the likelihood of dementia then increases. So I think India is on that path already, whereas Africa, we're still kind of moving into that space. So I think that's the one. And then the numbers, the sheer numbers in terms of older people is what's different. So if you're looking at India has 160 million older people, whereas Africa, it's far less. So I think it has to do with the numbers as well. The higher numbers of older people means that proportionally you'll have higher numbers of people living with dementia as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Philip, and then Femada, maybe you can address those other 2 questions.
Sure.
Thank you, Femada, for sharing those presentations. I'm from India, presently living in Hungary, Europe. I'm doing ministry in India. Let's come to practical, okay? You share about a lot of things about program and project and all. I'm sure, I don't think the government is doing anything regarding on taking care of elderly people, any scheme or anything. I don't think so. If you can, just let me know. You know, let's come to practical. You know, I know from my church, my elder brother church, there are the elderly people or how they are struggling for, the children, they don't care about them. You know, if they have a good amount of money stored in the bank, they take care of it. Otherwise, they don't care about it. Uh, so, no, what would be a practical solution? I know there are a lot of old age home, and there are charitable organizations are taking care of the elderly people. That's the only place they find peace and joy. I don't think any other way. So is there any other alternative rather than making a lot of program project these all? Let's talk it. Let's just give me some practical stuff which would help this. The orphan elderly people, those who completely left out from the children. So there even some murder take place in order to gain their property. You know that what I'm talking. Even the children, they kill their parents in order to gain their whole property to take it. So that's all happening. So
Yeah.
let's take it some practical step how that would be.
Thank you, Philip. And yes, I think the realities of the challenges is something we should not ignore. I cannot claim to be an expert in terms of all the programs that are run in India, but some of the things practically that I've come across from speaking to people at the dementia conference as well as the ASLI conference is that they are on the ground programs. Like, for example, when you're talking about the issue around elder abuse, I think that there is an elder abuse line that is run by one of the organizations. There's also a number of charitable organizations that's focusing on the poorer communities. Like, I think it's the Nightingale Trust that has programs that reach out into the community. So in the state we were in, there's a number of organizations that's doing some work. Even in terms of the apps that they spoke about, like I was speaking to the owner of the Kayal app, and there was another app as well that they brought up. And I said, but if this is a membership-based app, it means that if you don't have money to pay the membership, you can't access it. But there are certain functionalities that are free of charge as well. So there seems to be some of these initiatives. I'm not sure how they are able to curate the full scope of all the programs. I think that there needs to be further discussion. But whichever state you're working with, I would suggest to get the local players involved and have the conversations with them. Literally, we went on this trip by knowing somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And this idea around networking and just building up the networks becomes so critical if you want to try and understand what safety nets are available in the different localities. So I think, I can't claim to be an expert in terms of the programs. These are just things that we kind of picked up while we were walking around in the 90s that we were there.
Yeah. Femada, just before we go to Cynthia and then to Avinash, Femada, just to address that, and I think you addressed it a little bit in this, in what you were just saying, is that, yes, it cannot at this point reach everybody. But what is the thinking about rural India? I think it's the same thing about rural anywhere, because rural people have less access to all of these benefits.
Absolutely. And I think that there's a growing sensitivity to the specific needs of people within the rural communities. When, for example, we're speaking to the mayor from Kochi, obviously there's we kind of got the sense that there were deliberate attempts for inclusiveness in terms of rural communities as well. So trying to ensure that there's access. How far that goes into the actual villages, I don't know, because we didn't have time to actually look into that. But certainly when we were at the ASLI conference, some of the investors were saying that they don't want to look at businesses that's only concentrating on the top 5% in terms of your high income earners, but really want to look at how the programs and the innovations were reaching out to the masses. Because I think there is an understanding that the success of India will lie in being able to support everybody in terms of the aged care sector. Yes, there is a for-profit program, but there should also be quite a lot of focus in terms of on the ground. And at the ASLI conference, the Founders Award went to a nonprofit organization that was working in rural India. So certainly at these conferences, there's an attempt to spotlight the socially responsible programs as well. But perhaps, that's something to look at. How do they network and have the resources made available, but also to publicize some of these initiatives?
Yeah, it kind of underscores what you were saying, that the care idea and the care activity is a long-term investment, not short-term investment. Cynthia, your turn, and then Avinash.
Thank you. And again, Femada, thank you. A great presentation. And in our breakout room, a number of us raised the issue of that you raised about reverence but not relevance. And that really stuck with me, because I think it's just another way of saying, yes, one can revere, respect, but it's still a sort of pat older persons on the head and dispense with us, instead of making us and involving us in the process and hearing our voices. And so getting the strategies that really can make a difference in that trajectory is really, I think, where I would love to focus. And I think it has to be a very intergenerational approach, because the lifelong, if one grows up with that attitude throughout the life, then it stands to reason it's going to be the same. It's going to be reverence, but not relevant in older age. So how we might intervene and make positive, not to be, as I say, I'm not a Pollyanna here. There are real serious issues that happen for older people, but not all older people are, incompetent and unable to participate. So so that's the real struggle, I think, that we have and are at a real juncture with the longevity as we march forward.
Yeah, I think also, Cynthia, the kinds of conversations we're having were around including older people in the decision making and ensuring that there was autonomy. And at some point, I was speaking to someone who was part of the Elders Council, and so this idea that they still have a contribution to make, and people look to that contribution and look to that kind of spotlight on the lived experiences of people, was sort of gaining traction. And the person who made the comment around the relevance and reverence was saying that we need to challenge the kind of ageism that exists within the sector. And I thought that was really good for a young person to say that. So I think there is, there is hope, and we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Femada. Avinash, your short statement, and then we'll close formally and leave the conversation open for another 15 minutes.
So it's nice to hear from Femada, and I'm very happy to attend this Peon's lecture after so many time gap, because I am from India and I am the only person, I think, attending this lecture for the Indian vision for aging, which Femada has given, which from South Africa. Very happy to know but you had a very small time in India for 6 days, is very small, and that only one small city, Kochi. Kochi previously known as Cochin. So it is a very small city. Population is, I think, 67 million, 67. I think 6 or 7 lakhs population is very small with compared to our Pune city. I'm from Pune basically. Our Pune is 10 times bigger than Kochi. And as far as dementia part, what you consider to take up, that is, there is. Do you met anybody from ARDS, this Association of Dementia and Related Disorders of India? Could have given a
Yes.
correct view about this, because Mr. Han has a point, how many percentage of dementia people. But as far as India's dementia part is concerned, I am a gerontologist. So as far as dementia part is concerned, because there is a lot of mix-up between Alzheimer, dementia, and other neurological problems. So it is very difficult to precisely find out how many people are suffering from dementia. And the reason for getting dementia are varies. Right from what you mentioned about the elder abuse. Elder abuse is very low percentage with compared to lack of social stigma or social health. People don't have that much proper social health, but in the rural area they are very strong because of the combined family structure. But now this the point what you are taken up about this migration has really definitely increased, and people are going out for it. But this earn, learn, and return, what you mentioned, I think earn and learn is okay, is really good, but return is very small issue, because today I'm in US, so I know that, because I think I have moved around 50 countries. So it's very difficult to speak of any country within 5 days or 6 days. So, but returning part is concerned, as I know, that people don't return to country back to India, because they get a good money outside the India, either Europe or US or some Australia or some other places. And I'm very thankful. I will be happy if you can share your presentation to slides, because Moira or Jan, they are having my email ID. So I will be thankful for you in case if, and you will also come to my, so that we can share about our country, and you can also share about your country, because I am likely to attend this IFA conference, which is in South Africa, because my friend is there in Nigeria. She is a member of the IFA and other country. I am also member of IFA. So kindly share your PowerPoint presentation. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you very
Avinash,
much.
rest assured, this is coming by the end of the week. You're going to have the recording and the slides and some other stuff. So this is great. I want to take to pause here. First of all, to thank Femada for the account of her really short trip and covering so many amazing events and bringing us all this information and challenging our thinking in more than one way. This is the greatness of Pasiton Network. So thank you very much for being here today. And we're going to now close the session formally. And we open it for another 15 minutes until 30 minutes after the hour for anything else that you want to say. And this is the time to do it. So raise your hand and share.
It was overwhelming, but one of the things I did appreciate was that I was traveling with two colleagues. So the founder of CommonAge, Andrew Lapand, and so he's 74 years old, and our current chairperson, Mansoor Dalal. What was really nice about sharing this experience with two other people was we got to experience the culture together. But the conversations, we kind of helped each other through the horrendous rides through the traffic. But also we had some really interesting conversations around, let's think about what this means for our country. What are some of the political situations in India? What are some of our impressions? So we had conversations from the sublime to the ridiculous, with us trying out different things. So when I reflect back on this experience, firstly, I reflect back with gratitude that I had this opportunity to do this. I also reflect back with fondness, because I think when you share this kind of experience, it cements the relationship. So I'm really grateful for that. I think India has so much of potential. I think there's going to be a lot that's going to come from India. There's lots that we can learn. But it also, the lesson I take from this is we can translate our local programs within the frameworks that exist. We don't have to assume, like, for example, the being on the age-friendly register is an insurmountable task. We can look at local things that are happening anyways. It's a matter of coordination and bringing people together. And I think what Kochi has done is showed us the way forward, and there is a willingness to share that. So, yeah, it's been a tremendous experience. The culinary experience has just been amazing as well. My taste buds were doing all kinds of dances, from the tango to the flamenco, and you name it. It's just such a feast of culinary experiences. So that adds to the charm. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been really wonderful. Yeah. But Avinash, I do get your point around Kochi being very small compared to Pune, and this was done deliberately because of the invitation that we got for the two conferences and to be at the launch. So, you know, it was an opportune time, and we just looked at trying to intensify that the few days that we were there to make the most amount of impact. But I'm glad that aging is on the agenda. I think that's the biggest win, is that aging is on the agenda. Yeah.
Verna, you look contemplative. And you're on mute too.
I was just sitting here wondering if Femada is going to be in Boston in November, or if anybody is, for the Global Aging Conference. It's exciting for Americans because we don't have to go to abroad. It's going to be here. So I loved meeting you in Scotland. I wondered if you or anyone was coming here in November.
So I've just submitted my my session proposal. I think today was the closing date. Today, the 9th, was the closing date for the proposal. So I sent that through, and if it's accepted, then you may see me in Boston. So
we'll cross our fingers.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, reflections? Moira, you're now in South Africa. What
struck me particularly, and we were lucky to have Femada in our breakaway group, was the rapidity with which Kochi got their status, got through the whole process of becoming an age-friendly city. It was only 18 months. And we were just saying how absolutely extraordinary it had been, in the sense that they'd managed to coordinate. And that's how they got there. It wasn't through one individual effort. It was through coordinating and working with all the elements that were there. And that seems to me to be the real challenge for the future for all of us. We're all doing our work in our corners, which is great. But we need to find that exponential factor and really move. And that's what the Pass It On Network is trying to do, is to coordinate with other people. We're not trying to compete with anybody. We are there to pass on the good stuff that is happening around the world. And I think really that's what we all need to concentrate on, our own work, yes, but how we can link in, join in, and be exponential in everything that we do, because the challenges are just so huge. So important. And then the other thing that we thought that we should do is to find because Africa doesn't have an age-friendly city, so we should work on that and find a city that could maybe follow the example of Kochi and do it as quickly as that. And with Dr. M.M. Amakara in Nigeria going great guns there, that's one of the cities that we can work on. maybe.
Yeah, maybe this is what Megan is going to speak about. Megan?
Is Megan still with us?
Yes, and she raised her hand.
Yes.
Hello,
Oh,
everyone.
sorry. Hi.
Yeah, hello,
Hi.
everyone. Yeah, I want to ask Fem, thank you for that presentation, Fem. We feel like we were also there, at least we learned a lot. I want to find out from you, how did Kochi got sponsorship? Did the government sponsor for it to be age friendly? Because those were many activities, and I think it was a lot of infrastructure as well. So how did they get the sponsorship to be given the status of age-friendly city? Because that's what we need to know as Africans, so that we see whether we can also have or try to organize sponsorship for age-friendly cities.
Thanks, Megan. From the report that I read, it doesn't seem that as though there's a single funder or donor to the program, nor is it just the government's responsibility. It does appear that there are different role players. For example, when they looked at the Jerry Art, it was the trust that was helping in terms of that. When they looked at the training and development, it was a training school that was running the program. So it seems as though they used local resources, and rather than having one concentrated funding source, they looked at multiple players and how all of that can be brought under the umbrella of the age-friendly city. So they were not reinventing the wheel. They looked at programs that already exist, and they coordinated all of this under this umbrella. And that coordination role seems to have sat with support from the local government, but it was the non-profit organization that led the coordination.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So it's doable then in Africa, if
Yeah.
that's the case. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think the big thing, Megan, is that they were not being territorial. So part of the issue, I think, in Africa sometimes is that there's lots of competition for the airtime in terms of the programs that are being run. And we have to move beyond competition to collaboration. I think that's the big message I take from there as well. The problem is so huge that we can't afford not to work together. So we need to move beyond the territorialism and look at what our the amplified impact would be if we all had to work together. So yeah, I think it is about the willingness to collaborate.
Yeah, and a lot of networking, because there's no way
Yes.
you can know what's going to happen where you need to work as a team. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan.
We also have Han.
Yes. You told us that you went to 2 conferences and you mentioned one of them. Can you also mention the other one?
Yes. So one was the DEMCON, which is the Dementia Conference, and the other was the ASLI Conference, ASLI. So those were the 2 conferences.
Say that again, please.
ASLI.
AS?
Yes. L for living,
Yeah.
and I. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
ASLI Conference, yeah.
Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you so much, Osnat, Femada. That was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Really, I could feel your enthusiasm and energy coming through that, and we learned so much.